All right, so now the final thing were these UFOs right here. Okay, so I just, same thing. I got a little circle right here, and I'll just go back to here. And so I say like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty good UFO. So it's a little bit confusing when I see it as a circle. But of course, the circle just fits into a square just fine. So I can say like, oh, okay, how about if that was, okay, here's the center right here. And here's my little center line right here. So let's say I wanted another UFO just in line with this one to be about the same size as this UFO. How fat is that going to be? Well, just like with the train tracks or just like with the fence posts, I've decided like, here's the line that's going to bring that back. Here's the center point of that line. So that's how big the square is, the square that is around the circle. So then I can figure like, okay, well, I can go from here, all the way through to the next thing. Here, I should probably get my ruler, huh? Here. Honestly, you don't even have to use a ruler. Once you get good at this stuff, like I say, I hardly never use rulers for anything. That's why I don't keep them around. You don't need them. They slow you down. Anyways, just learn to draw a straight line. But so if this was like totally in line with this, well, that's what size it would be, wouldn't it? Same thing, same thing, same thing. So I'll just move this over. Say like, okay, maybe that's going to be where my UFO is here and here, right? It's going to be disappearing back. Oh, okay, so now that's how sort of deep it was here. How about this way? Well, that's easy enough. All I'd have to do is measure this right here. See? And so if this was at the same distance away and it's the same size little oval that's going to make this up, then this distance would be the same anywhere along this line. So I can just put that and that. You see where I measured it. And say like, okay, well, there is the little square. That square can then become a circle just by drawing an oval inside of it. There's my next UFO. And so forth and so on. I could say like, okay, if there was another UFO in line, this time I'll go, here's the center, here's the edge. See how that's going to draw through? And there's nothing magical about this edge. If I went from here, look, it would do the same thing. It would line up in the same place. So, cool. So anyway, so that's how wide that would be. And so, once again, if I were to look at, let's say here, how fat is that? That's that fat. Come on over here. And here, I'll put one edge here, one edge here. Hopefully this isn't getting too liney. But you see, there's my square. That square is the same as this square over here. You can just draw a circle in the square. And there's my other UFO. To me, this perspective stuff, it can get confusing. I understand that. I understand, especially as we get more advanced. But isn't that neato? I mean, it's like a puzzle. We can figure out all this stuff. All this stuff. And when we're done doing all this sort of theoretical perspective, we'll go ahead and we'll look at some photographs. Maybe I'll have you take your own photographs and we'll find the vanishing points and we'll find sort of how things work and line up evenly and all that kind of good stuff. Because, hey, there's a reason why they did this 500 years ago and they're still doing it today. Because it works, because it's right. Okay, so now to go from here to here, well, it's just a lot of shading, isn't it? And maybe a little bit more detail work. Like, so for instance, the railroad ties, well, they're going to stick out, aren't they? So how far are they going to stick out if you've ever actually been on railroad tracks? Oh, I don't know. Let's say that far. So I'll just draw that back here as a guideline. Okay. And then I can just make my railroad tracks. There's the little ties for the railroad tracks. See? There it is. There it is. That kind of thing, right? And the railroad ties would have some depth, wouldn't they? You know, if you've ever tried to walk on railroad tracks, you know they've got some depth to them. So they are little forms, aren't they? They're just other little tiny cubes, right? Very long, sort of rectangular cubes, but cubes nonetheless, right? They're going to have a form to them, aren't they? Just like that. Okay. Line this up so we get them right. And just like I did with the fence post, maybe some of them are in a little bit rickety. As long as you've got the spacing worked out, you're going to be looking pretty good. The other thing that I did on this one is, you know, in here I made it so that my ground wasn't perfectly level, right? You can see that it looks as if the railroad tracks are a little bit raised, that there's a little ditch maybe between the railroad track sort of base and the rest of the ground. Okay, well, so I just drew guidelines for that as well. And when I was making my shading, you know, I just shaded it in a little bit, like nice and curved. So you're following the contour lines. Oftentimes when you're making ground or other things, you're following the contour lines, not necessarily outlines, contour lines. And just thinking about the values. All right, what else? What else do we need to know on this one? Well, the shadows, and that really helps a lot. So I put a central light right in the middle right here, right? And so all I did was say like, okay, well that's going to line up with the light. And I didn't make the light, the shadows, excuse me, like super distinct. I just let them get a little bit fuzzy, a little bit fatter as they went away from the light. So here, or with this one over here, your shadow would be over here. So I just kind of make a bunch of lines like here's this one over here. Where would the shadow be? So I'll just line it up with the vanishing point in the bottom. Okay, so that's where my shadow would be for that one. See? Back over here to this one. And a lot of it is also just using logic. So if I had my light way down there, then my shadows would be like super long, wouldn't they? Here, I can see, where's that shadow going to be? Right about there, right? Okay. So forth and so on, you know, little details like how I put in a little bit of barbed wire, whatever. The thing is that I'm not going to go over all the process of shading and texture because I did it in the other videos. So if there's any confusion about that, go ahead and take a look at the other videos once again. And then that's going to teach you it all. Okay, so I think that's about it. And good luck with that. Hopefully you enjoyed doing train tracks, but maybe just slightly more advanced train tracks this time.